All right, guys, you're here with Josh Thomson. We're doing Punk's Opinion today. It's on Sunday, the day after UFC 240. We're going to do a quick little breakdown real quick, and we'll talk about some other things as well. I mean, we'll figure it out as we go. I guess, realistically, the biggest thing to talk about today is on the UFC 240 card is, to me, there's two of the biggest things to talk about. But to me, the biggest thing is obviously Frankie Edgar, which I'll get to in a little bit. But the second biggest thing to talk about is Felicia Spencer. Oh my God. She legitimized, she told and showed everybody that she's the real deal. She gave Cyborg a real fight. You could tell she started to slow down in the third round. And I'm not just here to break down fights. I'm just simply saying she is really good. She's better than the fact that even what she showed last night, she's better than that. Cyborg has the way of breaking people. I honestly, there's a lot of times I don't agree with Joe Rogan's analysis when they're doing the commentary. And there's times when I do really agree with him. Last night, I got to say, her stock rose, and I have to agree with Joe 100%. There was a lot of things that she did really well that kept Cyborg guessing. The fact that she was able to press Cyborg against the fence, do some work against the fence, do a lot of good things against the fence. She was nasty. I know she didn't land the harder shots, but she did some good stuff. I was very impressed with her. People were writing her. I was one of them, and I'm being very upfront. I wrote her off from the moment this fight was announced. I was like, this girl has no chance. And sure, maybe the scorecards didn't reflect it, but the fight was a lot closer than people gave her credit for. I believe the card was 30-27, 30-27, 30-27. I believe I had her winning one round, and I can't remember which round it was, but I thought it came down to the third round. I thought it came down to the fact that if she would have won the third round, I think the fight would have been a great fight, and it was a really good fight. But the next question, though, is that where does that leave Cris Cyborg? And I don't want to jump off Felicia Spencer too fast. She's talented. She's young. She's a legitimate 145-pounder. I would like to see her fight some other legitimate 145-pounders. She fought Megan Anderson. She had a great win over her. I honestly believe that this is her weight class to win. If Cyborg leaves this weight class and she leaves, and let's just say she goes to PFL and she goes to Bellator or wherever she decides, if she potentially leaves and goes somewhere else, this puts Felicia Spencer in the driver's seat. I think it puts her in the driver's seat. Don't get me wrong. I don't think she's going to beat Amanda Nunes. I'm not saying that. But I think she poses a threat to every other girl that's in that weight class. Now, I don't think that Amanda Nunes is going to defend both titles for very long. She's gonna eventually just pick a weight class and probably try to do that. Although right now is a good time to do both weight classes because the talent, it's not a talent-rich pool on either weight class. 135 and 145 are not talent-rich. So she can actually potentially do both for a long time. But I think Felicia Spencer has a good chance and a good opportunity to make sure that she stays relevant and make sure that she's at the top of the food chain at the 145-pound division. I don't know if she can make 35. I wouldn't even want to speculate on that. But I think she showed a lot last night, a lot more than people thought she was going to, including me. I was very impressed with her. Very impressed with her. To go back on to talk about Cris Cyborg now, where does that leave her? Let's just take the straight up conversation piece. Now, look, most people will talk trash about Dana White for a bunch of different reasons. I find my own self talking trash about Dana White for any reason I can think of. Okay. Look, and I don't have a problem with talking trash about Dana, and I don't mind Dana either. I know Dana is Dana because Dana is to me every other promoter that we've ever crossed paths with. Okay. The only promoter I've ever had any kind of good relationship with, and I've always felt it's been true to their word, and they're pretty upfront, is Scott Coker. Now, obviously, everyone's going to say, oh, because you're biased because you work for Bellator. No, because I had dealings with him when I was an actual real fighter during Strikeforce. Now, my relationship with Dana is completely separate and different from what I'm about to talk about with the whole Dana White issue right now. Not issue. the Dana White comments saying that, yeah, she may eventually, she don't want to fight in the UFC anymore. She wants to go somewhere else for easier fights. Look, outside of Amanda Nunes, there's no other hard fights for her in the UFC. Like Holly Holm may be the next hardest fight. Who just beat Holly Holm? There was a girl that just beat Holly Holm. Yeah. That girl, maybe another hard fight. You know, like there's no hard fights. There's truly no hard fights for her in the UFC Nunes. Either. Who? It was Nunes. Oh, Amanda. No. Holly Holm just fought recently. She just lost.
Yeah, it was Nunes. That was July 6th.
Oh, that's right. Okay. So the Amanda Nunes fight just happened, and she lost to her. And yeah, I mean, like outside of Amanda Nunes, there's no other hard fights for Cris Cyborg. Just like for Amanda Nunes, there's no other hard fights for her outside of Cris Cyborg. I've said this before, and I'll continue to say this. I think that every good fighter needs a nemesis. DC has John Jones. I had Gilbert Melendez. You know, guys have certain guys, or girls have certain girls that they just play their nemesis. And if you don't capitalize on fighting those people as many times as you possibly can, then you're missing the boat, man. You're missing your opportunity to create the Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier feel of all of this. Like, you're missing that, you know, and that's the hardest part. That's like, I think in this situation that with Cris Cyborg, she needs to step up, either sign that contract or bounce to another organization. And I think she's got a very willing and able opponent in Julia Budd over in Bellator. As far as PFL, I don't think there's a girl over there in that organization who's going to touch her. You know, there's not a girl over there that I think could even bother her or touch her or like is going to give her a hard time. You know what I mean? Like there, it's not. I wouldn't even. Now on top of that, but here's the thing: the fact that I said that, it just opens the door for the fact that she has the opportunity to win $1 million pretty easily every time she fights in that tournament. And how old is she? 30. How old's Cris Cyborg? 36, 37? 34. Okay, so she's 34 years old, and she has the opportunity to win $1 million basically every year until she turns 37, 38 years old. None of those girls in that promotion are going to beat her. They won't even sniff a W against her. So I don't know any of those girls are going to be able to beat her. And so she could go to PFL and sure, fight easier fights and make $1 million. And I'm not going to knock her for that because in 3 years, she'll be worth $3-4 million. And everyone's going to be sitting back going, yeah, we don't care about her anymore. Who cares? But she's sitting at home in her probably like $2 million house going, yeah, I don't care what you guys think. And she's laughing all the way to the bank. And I'll actually clap my hands and, you know, and give her a lot of credit for doing what she did, because it's hard to walk away. I got to tell you, I speak from experience. It's hard to walk away from the promotion that everyone considers to be the best promotion in the world, which is the UFC. And it's hard. You stake claims on everything that Dana White says, and not just the media, but then the fans and everyone, like they all see it, especially now that it's on ESPN. They see all the comments that are made by Dana at the sport level. Whereas before the comments were made and like randomly they would get put on ESPN because ESPN didn't give a shit about UFC until they got onto ESPN. You know, none of the guys ever talked about it. None of the sports shows ever talked about it. They didn't really give a crap. It was like Connor and GSP and Ronda, and that was it. The three people, outside of those three people, they didn't give a crap. Now they're with the ESPN. They're now pushing it and promoting it and doing all these things, which I think is amazing. I think it's great. I think it's a good step in the right direction to further legitimize the sport of MMA. But my overall comment is, like, my overall analysis of this thing is that people with Cyborg, I think she needs to go where the money is. She needs to go wherever they will pay her the most, and wherever the least amount of damage is to her body. At 34 years old, she need she needs to make as much money as she possibly can. Let's be real. Let's be 100% realistic about this whole scenario. Women's MMA does not make anywhere near the men's MMA. Now, sure, Ronda made a ton of money. Miesha Tate made good money because she became champion. Holly Holm's probably making some good money. But the rest of these girls are not making anything. Okay? And Cyborg, I don't think, sure, she's making probably decent money, but she's not making a killing, you guys. Like, you don't see her probably buying a home in Silicon Valley like where I live. She's probably having a hard time buying a home there or anywhere in Orange County, Costa Mesa, Huntington Beach, Newport Beach. She's probably not able to really buy a home there either. You know, so women's MMA, sure, it's hit that next echelon of the best fighters. I truly believe like this, the women's MMA right now I feel like is in that Frank Shamrock kind of era where you have like Amanda Nunes who's pretty well-rounded, got heavy hands. Like Frank was like that one that took it kind of to the next level of, he wasn't really great on the feet, but he had great cardio. He had good, decent stand-up, had good jiu-jitsu, good submissions, good submission defense. A guy who could push the pace. He made fights entertaining because he was like that next level of guys that just wasn't one-dimensional and found ways to beat guys like Tito Ortiz and Jeremy Horn and, you know, and so on. I feel like that's kind of where women's MMA is right now. You know, the one-dimensional fighters are no longer existent. You have women that are now across the board very well-rounded, very good. That are just finally getting into their own of like who they are and what they can contribute to the sport. Now, don't get me wrong. Like everyone that came before them, they just paved the way. No different than like Royce Gracie, Marco Huas, good kicks, good jiu-jitsu guy, you know, Maurice Smith. You know, you have all these guys that came up before that, you know, Renzo Gracie. Like you can't go through the sport without mentioning these people. But you can also do the same thing for women's MMA. I can't go through women's MMA without mentioning, of course, first and foremost, Gina Carano, who paved the way for everything, you know, and now making her way into the movie industry. And that was all done because of Scott Coker. And you have Cris Cyborg and that whole thing with her beating Gina Carano and moving on to the next chapter and moving into the UFC and everything else that came along. But you have Miesha Tate, Marlos Kunin. You've got the top girls, Sarah Kaufman. All of these girls, Julia Butt, they all kind of paved the way. Alexis Davis, they're the girls that paved the way for these females to be on this pedestal and get into the limelight. And I feel like it all rotates back to Scott Coker, who kind of gave them a platform to fight at the highest level on Showtime TV, on CBS, on things like that. And let's not all forget that Dana White said women will never fight in the UFC, and then shortly after they bought Strikeforce, and you had the rising star of, you know, Ronda Rousey and Miesha Tate growing even further beyond that. So my whole thing is Dana's doing what Dana does, not just Dana, but Dana's doing what almost every promoter does, and they are laying the groundwork previously and foremost in the beginning to let everybody know that the fighter is leaving because there's easier stuff out there to have. And if she wanted to really prove that she was a real fighter, that she would stay with the organization. Now, we all know that's a bunch of bullshit because there's no other person that I've ever met probably in my whole life that is more of a fighter than Cris Cyborg. And I'm going to be very upfront and very honest. I've never really been a huge fan of Cris Cyborg. I like her as a person. I've met her, talked to her, trained with her, done commercials with her. She is absolutely a doll and an amazing person. Like, outside of her fucking nastiness to fuck chicks up, she is really a great, great person. If you talk to her, she's extremely nice. She's extremely genuine. She's an absolute great person to be around. And so when Dana says like, oh yeah, she's trying to, but she doesn't want to be in the UFC anymore. She wants to leave other places to fight easier fights. You guys have to take that with a grain of salt. He's doing what every promoter does. I'm not knocking him. I'm simply saying he's making sure that everyone understands that when she leaves, that it's because she wanted easier fights. But I'm sorry, but she's already smashed pretty much everyone in that whole organization outside of Amanda Nunes. Now, I would love to see that fight happen again. I think when Dana says, I would offer a one-fight deal for her to fight so-and-so, Amanda Nunes, and if she became champion, obviously there's stipulations and things like that go along with you becoming the champion. Extend your fights for 3 more fights. You're stuck basically fighting for them until you eventually lose the title. And that's part of their contracts, which BJ Penn is the reason why they have that whole ordeal in place, because after he beat Matt Hughes, he left and started his own organization called Rumble in the Rock, flew in Takanori Gomi, beat Takanori Gomi in his own promotion, ended up fighting Renzo Gracie, beat him, ended up fighting Rodrigo Gracie, beat him, and all 3 of those people he beat in his own organization, and then eventually sold that organization to Elite XC, which then turned around and basically folded on Showtime TV, and then Strikeforce took over pretty much almost all of their athletes. So if you want to talk about who helped build Strikeforce, I would say the beginning portion of it was probably BJ Penn, because indirectly he did it without really realizing what he was doing. And he did it as a big FU to the UFC and Dana White for not offering or giving him the amount of money that he deserved when he first beat Matt Hughes. So my overall thing is like with Cris Cyborg, she has all the bargaining power now to do what she wants to do. I think she should leave for wherever the most money is. That's my take on what she should do. She should go wherever the most money is for her. So if she can make $1 million a year fighting in PFL, have at it, girl. Do your thing. 34 years old. No one's doubting whether you're fucking really fucking good. No one's doubting that. No one should ever doubt that. You are a gamer. Scroll down to the last time she lost a fight. No, Cyborg, the one you're on now. So she lost her last fight.
First pro fight.
So her very first pro fight in 2005. Is that 5 or 6?
That's 5.
That's 2005. May of 17th of 2005. Scroll up. Then she lost to Amanda Nunes in 2019? 2018. December 29th in 2018 was the last time. So from 2005 to 2019 is the last time she lost a fight. That's fucking insane. So I don't think anyone's going to ever discredit the last time she's ever lost a fight. The last time, no one's going to discredit the fact that she's a true warrior. She's been through it all. She's tough as nails. If she wants to leave to any other organization and make double the money, I tip my hat to her. I'm like, it's hard. It's already hard enough because it's hard for a fighter to leave an organization that everyone considers to be the best organization in the world and go somewhere else for more money. I wish people would start looking at these promotions as if it was a different team. And every fighter's going to leave. Every fighter, also basketball players, football players, they leave every team knowing that maybe the team's not as good or maybe the team is better and a chance to win a title. But all they care about is the fact that they're going to make more money. Why is it not that way? That I just have that. I have a quick. If you guys have answers for that, please leave comments in the comment section. Let's talk about it. Why don't these fighters leave for more money? Why is it not okay for them to leave to go and better their lives beyond that? I'm gonna say this because obviously another reason why I speak from experience. I made a shit ton of money fighting in Strikeforce, way more than the fighters that were fighting in the UFC were making. And everyone's like, "Hey, how come you're not in the UFC? Why don't you?" Because I'm making way more money. You know how many times my contract was up with Strikeforce and I could have left and went to the UFC? UFC had plenty of times where they could have offered me money, but I just always made sure that I re-signed before my last fight was done. I was getting paid double what almost all of their fighters were making. And on top of it, I was some of the times I wasn't even the champion. I was the number one contender, always like right behind Gil. And that's what sucked. Even when I was the champion with them, I had opportunities to re-sign. And it was like the money was so much better. I became champion in 2000, I want to say 2008, 2009, 2008. And after I beat Gil for the title, I actually saw what Sean Shirk and Kenny Florian made versus what I made. And mine was contracted and paid, and understand that I knew I was getting paid. This wasn't backroom bonuses. I got paid what I was negotiated and contracted to pay. And I want to say I made it was maybe 80 or 90 grand. And that was more than what the two guys had made. They made I want to say they made 15 and 15 or 25 and 25, somewhere in there. I can't remember. It's so long ago. Anyways, guys. But my point is that these guys, they should leave for other organizations that pay them more money. There's no reason for people to sit around and say, hey, I made this, I fought this guy. You fought the best guys in the world. Don't get me wrong. I think UFC has some of the best guys in the world. But it doesn't do anything for you after life, after fighting. And these guys need to step up. And I feel like Cris Cyborg is in that position right now at 34 years old where she needs to fight. She needs to make the most amount of money she can because it's only going to last about another 2, maybe 3 years. And then she's going to be done. 3 more years and she'll be done. And that's the thing because these younger girls are coming up. And we saw it last night with Felicia Spencer. Felicia Spencer. We saw it last night with Felicia Spencer, and we're going to see it's going to get even stronger. These girls are going to start getting even stronger moving on. And that's the thing is the younger group of girls are going to come up, and you're going to see it more often. And Felicia Spencer, I think last night solidified herself in that number 3, number 4 category in that 145-pound division. I mean, you've got other girls that are there. But I don't think that any of those other girls are going to be able to do anything. They don't even have to, what's the 130? Is that 145?
That's 35.
Yeah, that's 35, which is where she's at right now, right? So Jermaine Duronamy is 145?
She's 45 and 35, but they don't have.
Oh, they didn't even have a list below her.
Yeah.
So for me, I feel like Felicia Spencer is in that number 2, number 3, number 4 category. She showed a lot last night. Like I said, I didn't think that she was going to even be close. I tip my hat off to her. She fought a great fight. I actually thought there was moments there for her to win that fight, especially going into the 3rd round. And the judges didn't see that way, but it was 30-27, I think, across the board. But I had her winning, I think, the 2nd round. One of the rounds I had her winning. But I thought it came out down to the 3rd round for her to win that fight. She just came up short, man. But she's young. She's got a lot of growth and experience to gather and move into, more fights. I think it's a huge learning curve for her. I don't think it's no different than, say, someone like Canelo Alvarez losing to Mayweather at a young age. I want to say he was 20 years old when he lost to him. I think it's a great chance for her to grow as a fighter and, get those wings underneath her and see what moves on for her moving on. Now, as far as Cris Cyborg, I think she needs to go where the most money is. Outside of that, we can move on to Frankie Edgar. My heart broke, man. It wouldn't even matter. I'm a huge Frankie Edgar fan. I don't know if I'm going to give you guys a little inside scoop on him. He came out to AK one time, a long time ago, his first time out, trained about 2 weeks. He trained with us. Then right before he left, him and I became really good friends. The next time he came out, I told him, I said, hey, dude, don't spend your money on a hotel. Don't spend your money. You come out and you stay at my house. And he was like, you sure? No big deal. You sure this is okay? And I was like, yeah. Next time he came out, him and his buddy stayed at my house. And, man, we had a blast, dude. We had so much fun. These guys, they were great guys. And ever since then, we've had a wonderful relationship. And it breaks my heart, man. It's hard. It's hard. I think there's a lot of reasons why it's hard. It's hard because you're close with the guy. It's hard because, I know how much he trains. I know how hard he trains. I know that, look, I'm watching a couple highlights here, and I can see some of the highlights. And some of the highlights, he walks up to Max's son after the fight and, tips his hat to him and, kind of, rubs his head and just says, hey, said something nice to him, obviously, because, Max's son smiled as he walked away. It's hard, man. It's never easy. It's never any of the things that you think it's going to be. It's hard to see your boys lose. We've had Frankie on here before, and Frankie was one of the first guys that we had on. And, man, he's just a class act. No matter what he does, he's a class act. People give Jersey people a hard time, right? But I think when you talk to Frankie and you get to know how, these are real people, and you understand this isn't Jersey Shore. This is real life. You see his son walk in and put his hand on him. His son's upset. Son's emotionally upset. Frankie's upset. I think it's a tough go. He tried to do something that everyone's trying to do right now, and people are trying to win two belts in 2 different weight classes. It's hard, man. I think it's really hard. There's tons of things that I want to say. I just don't want to. I don't want to say. I had a chance to chat with him and talk with him, and there's tons of things that I think go through fighters' minds after this. Joe brought up a good point. And once again, like Joe and I, like when I hear Joe on the commentary and I hear Joe on some other things, I don't always agree with him. But in this in this thing where he asked him, hey, you're obviously very small compared to like Max Holloway, and to think he was the 155-pound champ where he beat BJ Penn, he beat a couple other guys, like it's. You start thinking in terms of like, yeah, he 100% he can make 135. He's not a big guy. And I agree with like how Joe approached the question and asking him like, hey, there's been talk that you're small for the weight. Frankie obviously knew that Max, he brought up that Max was a lot bigger than he anticipated, or just physically strong, and just he's talented. Obviously everyone knows Max is extremely talented. Max is a fucking animal, and it didn't go the way that he wanted to, but when you look back at the fight, so for me, I had Frankie winning round 1. I had him potentially winning round 3. For me, round 3 was the toss, but I had him winning round 1. And round 3 was a toss. I had him losing 2, and I had him losing 4 and 5. It's hard. It's hard for a guy who's not that long. Now at 37 years old, the speed's starting to slow down. I saw it a little bit last night. I've been there. I've been through the same scenario and same situation he's going through right now. Has nothing to do with the fact that he doesn't want it. He's that guy that every time he comes in the gym, he just gives not even 110%. I can't even say the percentage because it's like beyond 200-300%. He gives everything he's got, every round, every moment, every second, and he's just a straight up animal. And I thought if he was able to get Max down, I was thinking for sure that he would be able to do some good work on top, elbows, ground and pound, somewhere around there. I know Max is good at getting up. I know Max is good at defending the takedown. I just had Frankie, because I've trained with Frankie, several times. Flew out, trained with him for the Benson Henderson fights. He trained with us here at AKA for I want to say his last, scroll all the way down to when he first started fighting the UFC. I want to say his first 3 fights in the UFC. So when he fought Mark Bocek, Spencer Fisher, he trained with us. I don't think he was with us for Tyson Griffin. So he trained with us for Mark Bocek and Spencer Fisher. Those are the 2 fights he trained with us for. And I remember him being on top of him. I'm like, man, this guy is really good. Good ground and pound. Like one of those cat-like reflexes, you kick him back and he lands in a bear crawl position and comes back with big ground and pound. Like he just always had that's why they call him the answer. He always had the answer for everything you try to do to him. And he just found a way to keep getting wins and keep getting wins. And outside of just being a terrific person, obviously just an amazing fighter, extremely great conditioning. He's a great husband, great father. Like you can see his kids obviously love him dearly, going in the cage and talking, basically breaking down because, their dad lost. I talked to him, I want to say right after the weigh-ins on Friday. I talked to him and we're just shooting the shit, man. Just a good guy, back and forth on text, and never a dull moment, man. A great guy all the way around, and I'll never have anything ever to say bad to say about him. He's just one of those guys. Like every time I'm in Jersey, visiting family and stuff, I reach out to him and he always makes time. Doesn't matter what it is. Like, hey, come over to the house, or hey, let's meet for lunch. Like he's one of those guys. Like there's never a dull moment with him, but there's a lot of truth to who he is as a person every time you get around him. And his personality is contagious, man. He's just one of those guys that just, it's contagious. Like it makes if he's in a good mood, you're in a good mood, and he's always in a good mood. He's always one of those guys like, man, it's tough, but guess what? We're gonna get through this. We're gonna push through. He's got that. He's got that little bit of that jersey. He's got that Jersey pride in him. Not a little bit of it. He got a lot of that Jersey pride in him. He just last night wasn't his night, man. It was one of those fights. He just came up short. I think Max started getting stronger as the fight went on. Frankie was having a hard time getting in there in the range. Was eating the jabs, and the strength and physical size, it was definitely a factor. And Joe talked about him moving to 35. I get concerned about him moving to 35 for a couple reasons. Moving to 35, I've always said this, is that anytime you take a lightweight guy, you move him to 45. Anytime you take a featherweight, you move him to bantamweight. The issue is this. Speed kills, man. Frankie was good at lightweight because he was faster than everybody. He moved to 45. He wasn't faster than everybody anymore. When he goes to 35, he won't be faster than everybody down there either. So him fighting guys like Marlon Moraes or fighting Henry Cejudo is not going to make him faster. It's going to be harder for him. Physically, maybe sure they'll be the same size. But Moraes is fucking huge. And that's the thing. And Moraes and him train together. So I think he knows where he's at in that whole in that weight class. I think he knows that 135 is probably a hard road too. I'm not saying he should go up to 55 either, because those guys now are absolutely fucking enormous. And he had a hard time with Max Holloway, who was at 145, who just lost to Dustin Poirier. So I think right now you're in that zone of I'm 37 years old. I'm a former lightweight champion. I didn't get it done at 45. I think right now, is for him to go back to the drawing board, and he's in that position now to kind of pick and choose his fights. I think Dana has the utmost respect for him, understands exactly who Frankie Edgar is. At 37 years old, he had some tough fights, man. The Gray Maynard fights were fucking brutal on his body. Jose Aldo fights were brutal, to him, But he had a lot of great fights against a lot of great guys, His Benson Henderson fights, sure, they were tough fights. I had him winning the second fight, hands down. I had him winning. I had a close fight, the first fight with Ben. I had him still winning that fight, though, to be honest, in the first fight. I had him winning the second fight, hands down. I had him winning, not a split decision. I had him winning unanimously. But that was just me. The Jose Aldo fights, the speed played a factor, and you saw that. Without his speed, as he gets older, it's going to be harder for him to get the things that he needs to get in, because he's not a long, lanky guy, and he relies a lot on his takedowns and his mixing up of striking to the takedown, back up to the striking. And without speed, those things play a huge factor. And I don't know how many times I've said this. If there's an old saying that sticks around, it's because it's the fucking truth. When you say speed kills, it's because it's the truth. And that's why when people start talking to me, and I'm going to get into a different subject real quick, is when people start talking to me about the guy at 205 or the heavyweight, he's the GOAT. No, he's not. He's not the GOAT. I don't know if I can, maybe I'm being biased, but you guys can answer in the comment section. Maybe I'm being biased, but for me, I feel like 205 pounders, heavyweights, you can never be considered the GOAT, because the lack of talent there is ridiculous compared to the 45 and the 55 and the 170 pounders. The guys in those three weight classes, those guys should always be considered in that top GOAT conversation. I don't even know. Look up Jose Aldo, Dave. Jose Aldo, I can't even remember the last time he fought. I remember he fought Volkanovski, but I'm saying in terms of scroll down until when he fought Conor McGregor. How many years was that until he lost? So when people tell me Max Holloway is the greatest featherweight in the world, I sometimes look and I'm like, he had a loss against somebody in 2005. And then in 2006, he won. And he didn't lose a fight again until 2015. That's a long time. 10 years. He didn't lose a fight until 2015.
And he fought a lot.
And hold on, stop. Let me just go up this list. He fought Jonathan Brookins. He fought Rolando Perez. He fought Chris Mickle, Cub Swanson, Mike Brown, Uriah Faber, Manny Gambarian, Mark Hominick, Kenny Florian, Chad Mendez, Frankie Edgar. I don't even know.
That's a zombie.
Korean Zombie. He fought Ricardo Lamas, Chad Mendez. Beat all of them. And that was his 10 years of no losses. You take a look at that bracket of guys, and those guys are nasty good. Kenny Florian, Mark Hominick, Uriah Faber, Gambarian, Cub Swanson still fighting. Like, you have all these guys. Chad Mendez, Frankie Edgar. He beat all those guys. So when people talk to me about, like, who should be the best, the GOAT, I have no disrespect for guys like DC who I think they're right there in that GOAT conversation. But when you talk about the best guys in the world in combat sports, I don't look at it as heavyweight. I don't look at it as 205 pounders. In boxing, like people talked about Roy Jones, I don't think so, man. I don't think so. You can only consider the people that are like in that 170 pound, 165 weight class and below. That's it. I think because the competition is so great with those guys. It's enormous. Think about it. There's no easy fights in that list of guys that Jose Aldo fight, in the list of guys that Frankie Edgar fought. There's no easy guys. So when we're talking the GOAT conversation, look at this. Look at this list that Frankie Edgar fought. Scroll down more. There's way more than that. Look, let's go. So he fought. Let's say we start off with Spencer Fisher. Spencer Fisher, he beat. Okay, back in the day, he beat Tyson Griffin, who was really good at the time. You know, he fought Tyson Griffin, he fought Spencer Fisher, Gray Maynard, Hermes Franca, who I fought, but Hermes Franca, Sean Shirk, okay, Matt Veach, who was just, BJ Penn twice, 2 wins, Gray Maynard, which was a draw, nasty fight, by the way. Gray Maynard, which was a draw. Then he fought Gray Maynard again, got the win, won the, secured his title. Fought Benson Henderson, lost, went back and fought Benson Henderson again, should have won. Okay, fought Jose Aldo, lost, had 3 losses in a row, comes back, fights Charles Oliveira, who is now fucking phenomenal, was phenomenal then, just Frankie's better than him that night. Fought BJ Penn again, beat him again, Cub Swanson, Uriah Faber, and Chad Mendez knocks him out, knocks out Chad Mendez. Then he fights Jose Aldo. Then he beats Jeremy Stevens. Yair Rodriguez just utterly dismantles, loses to Brian Ortega, who was on all-time high at the time, plus way bigger than Frankie, obviously. Beats Cub Swanson, just dismantles him, and then fights Max Holloway right now. Tell me, you go to the heavyweight division, how many of those guys have fought guys like that? Who in the hell has a list of guys of that level, and they fought guys at that level? Tell me. I can't wait. I want you guys to list this in the comment section. So when guys start talking to me about the GOAT conversation, I have nothing but respect for guys like DC, John Jones, Cain Velasquez, Stipe Miocic. I have nothing but respect for those guys. Fedor Emelianenko, Derek Lewis. I love these guys. These guys are so fun to watch because of the knockouts, because of the things that they can do. But they haven't fought the guys. They haven't fought the guys that Frankie Edgar's fought, that BJ Penn's fought, that Jose Aldo has fought. They haven't fought these guys. They haven't fought that list of talent that these guys have fought. They just haven't done it. And that's like Kenny Florian's fought the who's who. BJ Penn fought the who's who. He fought all weight classes. So when these guys are saying like, oh yeah, I beat all these guys and I'm a 2-division champion. Yeah, but I know you beat the champions at the time, and sure the guys are good, but it's not the same. I don't know. I feel like there's something there that's not the same. And these guys in the 145, 155, 170 pound division, they're fighting the who's who every single time they step in the cage. John Jones, he's fighting tough guys. Don't get me wrong, he's fighting tough guys. Santos, I think, was the greatest opportunity and chance for him to lose his title. And I have no disrespect to Anthony Smith, but Anthony Smith wasn't on John Jones' level. Gus, the second time around, was not on John Jones' level. The first time, Gus was there. DC was having a hard time with him, man. Tough fight for DC. I had DC winning the second fight until he lost, until he got clipped and knocked out. I never really had him, like, it was a close fight. I didn't have it close at all. I had DC losing the first fight. It just wasn't there. Like, he just couldn't get on the groove of things. You know, it was a tough fight for him. But that list of guys that you see John Jones fighting, they're not the same list of guys that you see Frankie Edgar fight, BJ Penn fight. Like, sure, there's some names in there. There is. But let's take a look at where they were in their career when they fought him. And they're not on the same level, man. Thiago Santos, that guy's nasty, dude. Like, I have nothing but respect for him. I can't wait to see him come back. So when people start talking about the GOAT conversation, I know I'm rambling a little bit right now and talking about it all, but the rambling in this conversation is that I look at the guys from 145, 155, 170, and those guys, the top guys in the world should always be considered, I think, first and foremost over being the GOAT and considered in that greatest of all time conversation. And I think Frankie's right up there in that conversation. Maybe he doesn't have 2 titles, okay? But it's not easy to do what he's doing. I think it's actually harder, which we saw with TJ Dillashaw. I think it's harder for these guys to go down in weight and to win than it is for them to go up in weight and to win. Because the guys, as you go up, get slower. Sure, they have more power. Sure, they have more knockout power. They got all these things. But the speed is what kills. Power can decapitate you also. I'm not knocking the people that have power. I'm not knocking those things as you go up. What I'm saying, though, is that it's harder for guys like Frankie at 37 years old to go to 135 pounds and try and win a title there. You got to fight Marlon Moraes. You got to fight who else is at 135? Obviously you got Henry Cejudo. You got Marlon Moraes. Who else you got there? Peter Yan is fucking nasty. I think Sun Tzu, Aljamain Sterling. I think Frankie has a good chance against those guys. Peter Yan is nasty. Frankie's gonna have a hard time getting him down. He's got good takedown defense. Got good boxing. But I wouldn't count Frankie out on that fight either. So you have a good group of guys at that 135-pound division. I would love to see him and Dominic Cruz fight. There's no doubt in my mind I would love to see that fight. Even him and Cody Garbrandt, I'd like to see that fight. Jimmy Rivera, sorry, I'd like to see that fight as well. But the 2 fights I would love to see the most would be Frankie and Dominic Cruz and Frankie and Cody Garbrandt. The Peter Yan fight and the Sun Tzu fight kind of intrigued me a little bit. Aljamain Sterling kind of intrigues me a little bit. I don't think he'd fight Moraes because they're the same team, same coaches, all that stuff, so I don't think that would happen. But overall, I mean, you put Frankie right in that conversation of, it's not GOAT conversation, but it's at the top. It's in the top conversation of the best guys to ever be involved in the sport of MMA. He's definitely a first ballot Hall of Famer when it comes down to, who should be inducted in the Hall of Fame. Whether the UFC Hall of Fame or any type of MMA Hall of Fame, he should be in it. 100% he should be in it. So that's just my take on last night's fights. And, as far as the other fights go, I thought the Jeff Neal fight and the Nico Price fight was a good fight. The one takeaway from that is that sometimes when your corner is telling you to pass guard, just stay in the guard and just start ground and pounding guys out because you're landing some clean shots. I was extremely baffled by the fact that his corner was telling him to pass guard when he was landing the cleanest shots he could possibly land inside the guard. Nico Price is a tough son of a bitch and was very entertaining to watch. I think I'm going to start doing a show where we talk about certain fighters that remind me of past fighters. And Nico Price reminds me a lot of Ivan Salivary. Just kind of a weird style of stand-up / jiu-jitsu / grappling game kind of thing. It just kind of completely reminded me of him when he was maybe even the way his his body is, how his physique is, I think is kind of what threw me off also. He reminded me a lot of Ivan Salivary, and I haven't heard that name in so long, but for some reason that just kind of crossed my mind when I was watching the 2 of them fight last night, and fuck, man. Jeff Neal, nasty. So good fight though, exciting, and that was a good fight. Scroll down to the prelims, I think. The prelims?
Yep.
That's next week's card, buddy. Hey, stay with me here. Okay.
Prelims.
The other fight that was really good, scroll back up. So there was 2 fights. That one there. The Hakeem
Dawodu.
that was a great fight. I had the Japanese guy was winning pretty well, doing a good job. Just eventually Dawodu just came through, landed some clean shots with a big, huge head kick. Able to, it was good, man. He was very patient. The problem with guys that fight like that, right? He took him a while to figure him out. Once he did figure him out, he was able to land the head kick. But the rounds just tick away in a 3-round fight. And so had the Japanese guy been able to continue to do what he was doing, it ends up kind of playing against you. And so, but I really liked how Dawodu was patient, waiting for the fight to come to him, develop. He could have tried to land a little bit more in the first round. He finally was able to get him figured out, was able to land some good shots. Outside of that, what else was it?
The Gavin Tucker and Sung Woo.
That was a good fight as well. Great fight as well. The other fight that I liked was this one here. The what's it called? How do you say?
Alexander
Pantoja. Yeah, Pantoja, and then the Figueiredo.
Yep.
That was a great fight. I mean, Pantoja came out looking good in the first round, did some good stuff, started wilting a little bit in the second round. Figueiredo just had his number, man. He was faster than him, had good ground and pound, basically had good positioning when he was in top position. The whole fight was good, man. It was a really good fight. Pantoja took some nasty shots, was just cut up everywhere. Overall, this is one of those cards that even though some of them went to decision, even though some of them got some finishes, it was one of those cards that was kind of like a sneaky good card. It wasn't great, but it was overall, I would say, I'd give it probably like a 7 or an 8. If you're buying a pay-per-view for basically having like no name value on the card, I thought it actually delivered pretty well. And just so everyone understands, like, I'm not a full-blown UFC hater. I thought it had, I would rate it probably like a 7 or maybe an 8 when it came down to the overall like content of the fights. I thought the card was actually pretty good. The Felicia Spencer and Cris Cyborg fight really shocked me and threw me off. So like from the moment, and the same thing with the Jeff Neal and Nico Price. That fight threw me off as well. So I expected it. I wasn't expecting a whole lot from that fight, and it just delivered on all ends. I mean, it was a great fight, man. I enjoyed watching that fight as well.
Do you think it wasn't stacked? Because it was weird to me that there wasn't more kind of known pay-per-view fights, Do you think it like ties in with what you were saying a couple of weeks ago about fight cards like either not existing or not being strong in July because just like...
Well, pull up the Robbie Lawler and Colby Covington fight. That's next weekend.
Yeah,
Let's talk about it. Jim Miller and Clay Guida is the co-main event. I wouldn't say look, outside of being a true fight fan like myself, that's a great name value fight, but you're not going to get the same guys you would have got 5 years ago. Okay? And we're just being honest. The rest of the card, I'm looking at it right now. I wouldn't say it looks, doesn't look like it's completely stacked. I mean, there's not. Who's the prelims? Like, I don't even know who you have young up and coming guys that just,
You got Mickey Gall headlining the prelims.
Mickey Gall headlining the prelims.
Yep.
Yep.
And otherwise no.
Otherwise nothing. Otherwise, no one that like any name recognition you would know. You wouldn't. No.
You're watching this fight for. Oh, it's on ESPN as well. It's not even on ESPN Plus. So it's on free TV.
Oh, so this isn't a pay-per-view?
No.
Then who cares?
Yeah.
Then I don't care. Yeah, I mean.
But I'm saying it's not even ESPN Plus, so you don't even have to pay $5 for it.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I think it's a great fight. I think the Colby Covington and Robbie Lawler fight's enough for me to actually just tune in, period. 100%.
For sure.
Like, I almost would have thought about buying the pay-per-view. Like, last night I bought the pay-per-view just strictly because Frankie and Max.
Yeah, but this wouldn't be pay-per-view if there wasn't a title in line with it.
Yeah, probably not.
But would you pay the $5 on ESPN Plus for it?
Yep.
I guess is a bit, yeah.
I bought the pay-per-view last night.
Oh.
How often do I buy pay-per-views?
Yeah, never.
There you go. I bought it strictly because Frankie's on the card and
Yeah.
it was for the title. And I know where the money goes. So they're making their. Anyways, regardless, I think it was I think this fight coming up this weekend's gonna be a good fight too. So that's it.
Who do you got between these two?
I got Robbie.
You got shit on last time for saying that.
Yeah, it's okay. You guys can murder me in the but I feel like the layoff and the long time off, and I think Robbie and Colby Covington understand each other pretty well. They used to be training partners, and I think that Robbie could. I think Robbie understands where this fight goes if he beats this fight. If he wins this fight, that puts him right in that conversation of title talk. Just like he knew if he beat Ben Askren that there was he basically frog jumps everybody else and becomes a title talk conversation. If he knocks out Colby Covington, it becomes, pull up the 170-pound division, it becomes Robbie Lawler and whoever's number 2 or 3. So you got Masvidal, you've got, I don't even know who else you got there. You got Masvidal, basically. You got Masvidal,
Covington,
maybe.
Woodley, Leon Edwards.
Yeah, you got Leon Edwards, Masvidal, Leon Edwards. Those are the only 2 guys you have. He knocks out Colby Covington. That puts him right in that conversation of George Masvidal and Leon Edwards. Now, I could see him fighting Leon Edwards. That would, to me, would be a great fight. A great fight. I wouldn't mind seeing that fight at all, to be honest. Wouldn't mind seeing that fight at all. So, to see those 2, huh?
I was going to say, I think the week after you got Diaz and Pettis at 170 as well, though.
Yeah, 170, yep. Both of them decided not to cut weight. I think it's fucking amazing. I think it's great.
No, it's way out, man. Where is that fight? Oh no, wait, it's a.
No, it's on Stipe.
Oh yeah,
it's on the Stipe and DC
August
fight.
17. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Down at Anaheim. Good fight though.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm excited. ESPN.
Yep.
So free TV. Even better. Fuck.
Hey, see when you're covering the show live at Bellator and you have to like talk about fighters that you don't really know and they've got weird names. How much do you practice
a lot
the pronunciation?
you don't just we practice it the whole week. We actually talk to the fighters and we talk to them directly to say how you pronounce your name yourself, because like you can tell obviously I don't like pronouncing some of these guys' name.
I can tell.
Hakparast, like I don't even know that guy's name. Nasrat.
Basically the younger version of Kelvin Gastelum.
He looks just like Kelvin Gastelum. Yep. Yeah. Extremely strange. But no, we do prepare a lot. And the other thing too is that what I do is when you're doing the research on the fighters, you listen to how all the old fights that they've had, how those announcers pronounce their name, because they probably have talked to the fighter.
Yeah.
So you repeat it to yourself a bunch of times, and then I have, to be honest, I have one of the best, if not the best, in-cage announcers in MCW, Michael C. Williams, and he breaks everything down phonetically for me. So if there's a fighter that I don't know like how to pronounce his name or I'm having a hard time saying it, he'll break it down for me phonetically, and he'll put it on a piece of paper, and I'll just have it there cage side.
Wow.
So I can understand how to make sure. Well, you just got to make sure you're not fucking up these guys' names.
Yeah.
Now, there was a situation where I was in, it's so funny, and I was just telling the story the other day. There was a situation where I was in Birmingham, and I was calling cage side, and I was in the cage interviewing Pedro Carvalho after his fight, after he beat Campos. So after he beats Campos, I'm in there doing the interview. Well, the whole show that we were doing in Birmingham was all highlights and clips about Rafael Lovato Jr. So while I'm doing the whole show, we're showing replay after replay of Gegard Mousasi and Rafael Lovato Jr. because they're getting ready to fight in London, in a month or so. So I'm interviewing Pedro Carvalho, in the cage after his win over Derek Campos. And for a split second, my mind went blank. And you know what went through my mind was, is his name Rafael or is it Pedro?
While you're in the cage?
While I'm in the cage, and I'm asking him, he's answering my last question. And in my mind, I'm like, fuck.
Can I play it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
You came over to me and started yelling at me at the cage.
And I'm like,
the future. What do you mean? I mean, again and again.
He kind of rambles on towards the end, though.
Before this one, when I land the first
We gotta work on the interviews. I gotta work on the interviews too. I'm not.
Do you have somebody in your ear telling you
They don't tell you what questions to ask. They tell you
to wrap up?
like okay, we're gonna walk through interviews or we're gonna walk through highlights. They tell you.
Okay.
So take a look at the screen, walk through the highlights.
These are all a puzzle that we all put together, and this is the work. One round job with
Yeah.
one of the best in the world.
It was a good fight, man.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, get up here with your pen and come on.
See how I mumbled it a little bit because I was like, oh no.
Was that the part you were talking about?
Yeah, but I
not
thought it was
bad.
I didn't say his name wrong. I said his right name. But for a split second, I was
Get up here with your pen and come on.
I was literally like second guessing what was his name as I'm at there because all we had done was interviews for Rafael Lovato Jr. And I'm like, oh man, please don't mess us up. Yeah, horrible, man, horrible.
Sorry, it takes time.
Oh no, it was just brutal, man. Like I was up there, I was like, oh no, oh no, oh no. But
Do you ever watch? Do you ever just like watch post-fight interviews like Joe Rogan or Big
yeah,
John?
no, I do. I watch Rogan's, I watch DC's, but you got to remember though too, you're not them.
Yeah, but just as far as like what to ask them and how to kind
No,
of control
because
the pace.
you don't ask every fighter the same thing.
I mean, close enough.
No,
right?
you don't.
Well,
Not
you
really.
have like a serious, like kind of like,
No.
what did you think of
You
this
have-
part of the fight, and then kind
Yeah,
of,
but
like,
you also
what's
have to
next
be
for you.
Yeah, but you also you see what next is such a common thing. Like you don't ask every fighter that because they're gonna give you like I want the best, I want the champion. No one gives. You only really want to ask that question to like the number one contender. If you know someone is like ready for a title shot, what's next? What would you like to be next for you? I want the fucking title. I want whoever's ranked ahead of me. Like those are the guys you should be asking. Don't ask some guy who's like number 12 or 13 on the fucking ranking. No one gives a fuck. What's next for you? Yeah, I want to fight the number 4 guy.
Yeah, but what if he has
No
an
one gives a
incredible?
shit.
What if he's like on his like third incredible knockout, and it's like
Possibly. Like, who would you like to fight? You would ask him, like, who would you like to fight? Like, not what's next for you. I mean, like, it's
something like
something
that.
similar, I guess. Yeah.
It's kind of like always like a variation of like the same questions. I feel like. Like walk us through this part of the fight. What was going through your mind here?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. You're trying not to do that. You're trying to ask them like, hey, I saw you look like you were a little rocked in the second round. Came back with some big shots towards the end of the round. Let's walk you through the big shots in the end of the round. Did you think that was enough to win you that round? Like you got to remember though too. You have to be on point with the people in the truck that is running the replays. You can't say like, yeah, in the second round, randomly. I have to actually tell them to record those combinations in the second round while the fight's going live. Because then when I get up there in the cage, I can't say like, yeah, in the second round, you landed some big shots. They're not going to know what to pull up.
So how did people like Joe do it when he's cage side? And then he's straight in the octagon right after?
That's what I do. So I'm saying those, you tell them like, hey, I like that combination. Highlight that combination. So during the fight while it's live, and then when you get in the cage, you ask them a question geared around that highlight.
Do you have a mute button so that you're not saying that over the broadcast?
Yeah. You have a talkback button.
Oh,
the talkback button goes right to the.
That's funny because I noticed last night a few times when Joe was doing post fight, he's like, yeah, right here, this is this part, and then he's like, oh no, wait, that wasn't the clip or whatever, a couple of times last night he was like talking about replays and he's like, oh no, wait, that wasn't the one.
Yeah. You have to be on sync with the people in the truck. That's tough though. That's hard.
Yeah, it's freaking hard.
Because they have to pull up that highlight clip within seconds of you saying it. Yeah. That's not fair to them. And so we minimize that as much as like I try to minimize that as much as possible. But Joe's an absolute fucking animal when it comes down to like him being cage side. And you can tell he's the guy that just does whatever the fuck he wants when he's cage side because he doesn't do anything that's outside of whatever he doesn't know. Like he's legit on everything he talks about. He knows what he's talking about. If he doesn't know what he's talking about, he doesn't bring it up. So, I think we pretty much covered everything.
Yeah, I was looking to see if there was any news, but there's nothing really that's we never got to hear from you about the boxer that passed last week. If you had any
there's
input.
two of them. Two of them died
Oh really?
in the same week.
Oh really?
Yep. One was 28, one was 23. I don't know, man. There's a lot to talk about. when it comes to, and it has nothing to do with boxing, it just has to do with combat sports.
That may be
you
a
know?
good one for Big John.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think, Big John, maybe we'll probably cover that tomorrow. We'll cover that tomorrow, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. There's a lot I would like to say, and I think hearing maybe from a referee's point of view with Big John, that would be a great idea. And God, I was wondering why I always had Dave around. And this is the reason why. That was a good suggestion.
Always make good suggestions.
I don't know about that. But no, overall, I think I think people want to say like they want to try to blame boxing, or they want to blame the refs, they want to blame the coaches. This is honestly, it's a sad day, but it's the sport that we're in, and I don't know, man. It's unfortunately it's part of. I think it's now been part of what we do, and it sucks. But some of these guys, people don't realize how much it means to these athletes to win. Like when they go in there, and when somebody goes in there and boos you because you're not being active, or because you quit on the stool, or or the fight was stopped while you were on the stool, or whatever it is, man, it drives me absolutely crazy. Because every time they go in there, man, you have to understand those people are fighting for something. They're fighting for food on the table. They're fighting to feed their family. They're fighting for something, man. Whatever it is, it could be small, it could be big, doesn't matter. But they're fighting for something, and it saddens me to see two young guys, 28 and 23, both die. Yeah, especially in the same week, man. It's just it doesn't matter if it was MMA, it doesn't matter if it was boxing. It could be fucking basketball for all I care. No one wants to see anybody at a young age like that die, and it's sad. It truly is sad. And I've seen the highlight. I've seen the highlight clip, but I've seen the clip of Max's coach pleading with him, like, "Please let me stop the fight. Please let me stop the fight." You gotta, no matter how much you want to say no, your coaches will tell you, like, "Do you want me to stop the fight?" Not, "Please let me stop the fight. Let me do it." There's a difference, between the two. And when Buddy McGirt's in there going, "Please, Max, let me stop the fight," that's because you have a man that's standing in front of you that loves you and cares for you and truly does not want you to get hurt. Versus when a coach sometimes, and I've been in this situation where the coach tells you, like, "Hey, like, do you want me to stop this, or are you going to start fighting?" And that was the conversation, was like, "Do you want me to stop this fight? Because you're not fighting to your potential, and I'm going to stop this fight because you're not doing anything." And so that's when you got to light a fire under your ass. That's your coach telling you to light a fire under your ass. Not like, "Hey, please let me stop the fight. You're taking too many shots. Please let me stop the fight." That's a passion that great coaches have for their athletes. And it's sad. It's sad to see two young guys at 28 and 23 go at such a young age from doing something they truly loved. But and people that walk the street, man, they'll never understand the passion and the love that I think fighters have for combat sports, whether it's boxing, whether it's kickboxing, whether it's MMA. It doesn't make a difference. And just I always go back to like my own personal experiences, but I have to remind people that, when I got into this sport back in 96, 97, my first fight was the end of 97, and I paid $25 to fight, and then my second fight, I got called on 2 days notice and went down to Boise and fought someone for $150, and then my third fight, I fought a 2-time All-American from Boise State, and knocked him out in 7 seconds from a head kick, but I only made $300 on that fight, So by my fourth fight, so $300. Like I took both those fights on 2 and 3 day notices, like a week notice, like both of them. So, like the sport's come a long way, but I remember what these guys probably got into this, whether it's boxing, whether it's MMA. They got into this sport for the love of for the love of combat. They'd love to probably fight outside of the cage or the ring or whatever it was. They had that in them to be a fighter. You know, they've probably been through a lot in their life. And then on top of that, all of that, you know, they just have no quit in them. You know, they didn't want to go back to where they came from. I mean, every fighter has their own reason for fighting. But I think, you know, I would say a big majority of combat sports athletes, you know, came from either broken homes or they came from poor families, and they came by scraping by. They, you know, for me, like people don't realize, like I worked in the fields picking apricots, you know, and cut apricots and things like that, you know, with my family. So people don't realize those type of things, and so you just realize in your life as you're coming up that going to the gym 3-4 times a day was a lot easier than, you know, working in the fields and doing those things. So it's sad. It's sad because you can see the desire in those guys' in Max's eyes when Buddy McGirt's sitting on the corner, in the corner, pleading with him, please let me stop the fight. And Buddy McGirt said it the best, is that, like, I would much rather have my fighter mad at me for 2 or 3 days than for his whole family to regret me or hate me the rest of my life. He's like, and those are the spoken true words of wisdom from, or just no more truer words, you know, from a professional trainer of a true athlete. And it truly is a sad day when people criticize these athletes for, you know, stopping the fight or not answering the bell or whatever it is, because every time they seem to lay it on the line, you know, and you know, money in this case obviously doesn't solve everything. So it doesn't matter how much money they made, because, you know, they're not going home to their kids and their wife and their family, and they'll never see them again on Christmas and those type of things. So when people boo or when they criticize other athletes, it drives me absolutely crazy, you know, especially when you see guys like, you know, Diego Sanchez lay it all on the line every single time he's been out there and been fighting, you know, I think pretty much almost as long as I had been fighting, you know, which is almost 20 years. And you have these guys that are fighting for this long. It's you know, that they give it their all every single time. So you don't want to see anything happen to them, you know. I think that just about wraps it up, man. So I will probably break this down a little bit more and try to talk a little bit more about it all with Big John McCarthy tomorrow night. So weighing in tomorrow night, Big John McCarthy. And what we're saying.
I gotta say thanks for inviting us out today, because we almost went to Gilroy Garlic Festival.
Oh, crazy!
And that's freaking.
Man.
There's 11 people shot. It's fucking nuts.
Yeah, I got to read up on it. I just had some friends that were down there, and I had everyone text me like, "Hey, are you there?" And I was like, "If you guys haven't heard the Gilroy Garlic Festival, there was a live shooter just running around and
Still active as well.
Still active. So, no one knows. I guess some kids were killed, and some people were obviously some others were shot. So. Didn't want to be a negative Nancy at the end of the podcast, but obviously I'm here in the Bay Area, which I'm only 20 minutes away from Gilroy. So I have a lot of friends that actually worked the show and had their kids were working too, working the parking lots and working the concession stands. So, you know, just a little something that before this thing we just heard about. So David and I were just communicating real quick. Hey, want to wish you guys all the very best. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night. Hopefully we covered everything on that fight card, and we will move on. Please follow us and hit the subscribe buttons on everything: iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, iHeartRadio, as well as YouTube. Please hit the little thumbs up button too on YouTube. That shares our videos to anyone else that watches MMA or talks fights or anything like that. You know, and then the other thing is, what is it called? You say it.
ProWrestlingTees.com/Josh Thomson Official.
Yep, /Josh Thomson Official. We have the Hot Nougat shirt. Okay. Anyways, you guys, it's a classic, you know, because I don't know what I said Hot Nougat one day, and now all of a sudden it became famous all through YouTube and Twitter. So I have a Hot Nougat shirt with the Ryo on my head plastered on it, which looks very cool. I actually really like it. I saw Dave wearing it today at my house at the pool party. And then I have the SATP, the Sons of California. Pretty dope shirt, though. And then we have our original tee, Sammy the Punk logo tee, which is up as well. So those are our 3 t-shirts on ProWrestlingTee.com/Josh Thomson Official. So that's what.
We should have a Punk's opinion and weighing in coming soon as well.
Oh, that might be good. Yeah,
Yeah.
there we go. Sounds good. I'm gonna film again tomorrow night with Big John McCarthy. We're gonna talk probably the boxers, and we'll talk some other stuff, and go from there. All right, guys. Hey, thanks for tuning in. You're here with Josh Thomson, Punk's Opinion. Thank you guys, and hit the subscribe button.